Sumner also cited another study which notes how obscure and contemporary ethics books are 50% more likely to be missing from the library than similarly obscure and contemporary non-ethics books. While surely there are other explanations for this, the suggestion is, interestingly, that ethicists steal more books. Although the results of these studies cannot be conclusive, what the two studies ultimately suggest in Sumner's eyes is that ethicists are, at the very least, they behave no better than non-ethicists. Just based on my personal experience with people who study ethics, at the very least I think it is right to say that the study of ethics does not necessarily cause one to be a better person. And I mean, I think I consider myself part of this group also. I mean, I might as well practice what I preach, right? Sumner explains this phenomenon by saying that the study of ethics can result in either of two situations. It could encourage an ethicist to be more ethical, or it can equip a person with the skills to rationalize the behavior that best supports their own lifestyle as moral behavior. What is important is how Sumner notes that if the practical implications of a favored ethical theory, or any theory for that matter, remain obscure, it is easy to assume the theory simply is congruent with one's own current lifestyle. If this does indeed happen, and I've read at least one psychological study on what is called my bias to suggest that this does happen, then the study of philosophy can only alter the way philosophers live their lives if the practical implications of their positions are worked out, or at least thought about. These practical implications are thought about in a more serious way. Sumner claims the question of squaring our conduct with our professed opinion does not arise for most philosophers. He acknowledges that it may not be possible to fully integrate our life and work, but I think he is right to suggest that at least the attempt to integrate the two is made by far too many people. This attempt has to start with working out the practical implications of not only ethical theory, but of all types of philosophical reflection. I imagine many of those who teach philosophy, among whom I'm now proud to be considered a part of, think that they are doing some good by passing along information to students that they think will help these students live better lives, make better decisions, or at the very least understand themselves better. If we believe that teaching philosophy is going to help students understand the world they're placed in, and help them make better decisions as a result, I think we have an obligation to be the exemplar of practicing what one preaches, and to illustrate what it is like to live a life committed to the philosophical positions we defend. Only if we ourselves do this do we have any reason to believe others will as well, and as I suggest, this starts by working out the practical implications of abstract theory. So much for discussing how philosophers have to practice what they preach. I'm going to turn now to how philosophy ought to work out the practical implications of its positions, so they can better contribute to issues felt to be important by society at large. So in a recent review of the University of Western Ontario's Rotman Institute of Philosophy, whose mission is to foster and support dialogue and collaboration between philosophers and scientists, and to promote public engagement in philosophical reflection on scientific issues, the reviewers claim that this mission is particularly important today because much of professional philosophy, especially in the most elite departments, has turned into an exceedingly abstract and esoteric enterprise that is becoming increasingly removed from the pressing philosophical concerns of investigations across the academy. Yet philosophy is perhaps the one discipline in the humanities that should be relevant to research across all disciplines. That was the entire point. Well, I think it should be made clear that it is a mistake to assume that the only way philosophy can be practical is by engaging with the various sciences, or even with the investigations taking place in different university departments. I think it is correct to claim that philosophy is the one discipline that should be and is capable of being relevant to any discipline and virtually any problem an individual or group is dealing with. The problem is that philosophy is not accessible to researchers in other fields, nor is philosophy accessible to the educated layperson in general. This is a problem we need to fix, and is a problem I think philosophers themselves have the responsibility to fix if we want our work to positively contribute to our culture. And I should note that it is not only philosophers who have this responsibility, but all those who work in largely theoretical and, in general, inaccessible disciplines by non-specialists. So Martin Nussbaum claims that philosophers who are unwilling and unable to overcome professional habits and vocabularies in order to reach out to readers beyond their discipline ought to be criticized. In an effort to reach out to other disciplines, she claims that philosophers ought to enter public debates, analyze concepts in the social and natural sciences, examine economic models, and such like things. This is a two-sided coin, however. Economists and policymakers must be willing to listen to philosophers, and we must be willing to express ideas in a clear and readable fashion. There is responsibility on both sides, but arguably I think the onus is on philosophers to first present their ideas in a way that is accessible to not only individuals doing research in other university departments, but to non-specialists, that is, the educated public as well. It is by and large the public in general who is capable of affecting significant changes in our society, not isolated individuals working in universities. Only by communicating with as many members of society as possible is philosophy's traditional goal of producing a conception of humanity and its place in the universe worthwhile. The demand that philosophy make itself practical has been put forth numerous times. I think that often people interpret this as the demand to stop doing abstract philosophy and focus on the more practical subtypes, such as applied ethics, some sorts of political philosophy, philosophy of science and biology, etc. But I don't think the demand to make philosophy to be practical ought to be read this way. I simply think that that effort needs to be made to consider how the seemingly abstract questions philosophy concerns itself with might be useful for reasons other than for satisfying an intellectual curiosity. Now, some may view this call to practicality concerning because many claim that philosophy is inherently valuable, that the pursuit of truth for truth's sake is one of the highest exercises of freedom, and so philosophy, at the very least, should be the one discipline that should have free reign over any subject matter and should not have to confine itself to purely practical matters. What I'm trying to suggest is that philosophy can both enjoy the freedom of not being confined to a particular subject while at the same time be practical. What is important is determining and clearly explaining why the issues philosophy is grappling with are worthwhile and relevant. I think this is not clear to most people, and if this can be communicated to a larger number of people, then contemporary philosophy will have made a great accomplishment. This would suffice to satisfy what I think is the need to make philosophy more practical. Ultimately, I think some philosophy can remain abstract and generally inaccessible, but far too high a percentage of it is so at the moment, and we can no longer assume that all abstract and technical philosophy cannot be put into clear language and the practical implications cannot be worked out. It may be that this is the case for some philosophy, but without thinking about it, we won't know what can remain abstract and what ought to have its practical implications worked out. What I would like to suggest is that the question of whether or not something can be practically relevant simply needs to be asked more often. Philosophy is many things, and as I said, can continue to be a discipline that technically has no limits with respect to what it reflects upon. If the face of philosophy is the way in which it is viewed by the wider culture at large, I think it can be up to philosophers to change how philosophy is viewed by the wider public, and this involves philosophers engaging with the wider public and the issues thought to be of importance to this wider public, as well as explaining why the seemingly abstract issues of philosophy are important to non-philosophers. So to return to Sumner, he claims philosophers can have three kinds of public engagement. Direct participation in policymaking, so philosophers can become politicians or government officials. Philosophers can participate in groups that influence policy, and philosophers can publish documents, make presentations to analyze issues of public concern, and recommend policy options concerning them. He notes how this last kind of public engagement is the one most easiest for us to get used to, and in ways I think is the most important for altering what I have called the face of philosophy, or how philosophy is viewed by the general public. At the conclusion of his presentation, Sumner's two main suggestions for philosophers are that, one, philosophers should at least take some time off from theory to think about, and I would include write about, pressing public issues, and two, philosophers should make an effort to communicate their work to a wider educated public. I think these two suggestions capture what I'm suggesting also, with a slight alteration that indeed we ought to think and write about pressing public issues, but we also ought to think about and communicate how our abstract work in philosophy is related to pressing public issues. In conclusion, we take it upon ourselves to think things through as deeply as possible, and to begin to question and think about the things that are taken for granted by most people, whether in a particular profession or just by the public in general. I think it is required of all of us that we think a little harder about why we are doing what we're doing, and what good it can do for our society at large. If we start to make philosophy something that more people can engage with, as well as be exemplars of how the subject can change a person's life for the better, we can not only alter the way philosophy is viewed by the public in general, but we can do more good with the thinking that we consider to be more valuable.
floor to questions, comments. Start with Stephen.
Sorry about that, my outburst, but
Oh no, it's great.
No,
fogging the shit out of
You're
me.
very welcome, thank you.
Yeah,
You said what we were all thinking.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Would you expect the same of physicists? It's a very short, pointed question.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, that's fine. Yes is good.
okay.
Um,
That's it? No
to take your first point then, practicing what we preach,
Yeah, yeah.
I have developed a very sophisticated and in fact unassailable argument for the ways in which people, by me mostly, should be punished.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure. Okay.
And I think among my colleagues I've explained a la Marquis de Sade that, you know, this is the way forward, this is about human experience, etc. Should I practice that? Are you claiming
Yeah.
that all philosophical positions should be practiced, or just the ones you like that are quote-unquote good for society?
Right. This is a good question. And I suppose
I have more.
Yeah.
I have an answer.
Maybe I really like vivisection, you know?
Right.
Take
well,
the
so-
pig or the monkey alive and tear it apart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is
well,
good for everybody.
Sure. You know, my first response would be that, you know, one of the ways in which philosophy is defined is as a normative discipline, right? So I suppose I'm assuming that, you know, this situation won't arise, that, like, you know, someone could have a pretty outrageous philosophical position that they'd like to practice. But I mean, obviously, you know, not everything should be practiced. And I mean, a part of, you know, working out the practical implications of something is determining whether or not it ought to be practiced, I suppose. And I mean, I don't think the question of, you know, what should I sort of live my life by is a question that ought to be answered individually. And so hopefully there's, you know, some sort of public, or at least communal dialogue going on to prevent this case from happening.
Thank you.
First of all, I would agree with you. I think that the ultimate test is whether or not a theory can survive in society.
Right.
You know, either you get locked up or you don't. But what I was going to ask you was...
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just saying. What I wanted to ask you,
Forget
though...
whether it's true, it's just a matter of whether you go to jail.
Okay, alright, that's a bit of a stretch. Okay, let's get to my question. Oh, I'm all embarrassed.
I mean, thank you, Conrad Black.
Okay. What I wanted to ask you was, your talk seemed to imply that you felt all philosophical concepts could be translated into a practical, understandable, applicable context. And I was wondering if you actually feel that.
I tried to whip in a sentence or two to caution against this. I don't think it's possible that not everything can be translated into something digestible by, you know, everything to be planned right. But I mean, I think it's used way too often as an excuse. Well, you know, there's some things that simply can't be put into easily understandable language, and so people just think that nothing can. Right?
Well,
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
oh, well, like, for example, I was thinking the problem of perception. How do you explain to the average person why that question is even really important?
Well, I mean, that's sort of what...
Put a stick in a river.
Yeah,
Advance.
Bam. Right?
Okay.
Dope sounds...
Plato did it?
No.
Alright.
But I mean, people just don't think about whether or not it's possible to like, it's just not thought about, you know, whether or not you can translate this into clear language, or whether you can sort of put such a view into practice. I just don't think that's thought about at all. Like, it's just a sort of missing question. Whether or not that will, like, if, you know, it might turn out that, you know, I can't live my life by a theory of realization, and I just can't put that in language to, you know, express to someone.
I mean, that might turn out to be the case, but try first, I suppose is what I would suggest, right?
Okay.
I just don't think.
I don't know if you can, but something I sensed in like that question and this question and now your responses, and specifically from your talk, maybe a distinction between practical application of theories and in your own terms, working out of the practical implications, which doesn't necessarily indicate an application, but what would it mean to think this way? I don't know if you have anything to say on some kind of distinction like that, or whether it's non-existent.
So can you explain the distinction, like?
Well, like when he was talking about, okay, I have this theory about ripping open pigs, and that sounds great, and I want to do it.
Yeah.
Is that really a philosophical stance, and is that something that has implications? Okay, but then you talk about implications, so it's working on what are the implications? What's that? Thank you.
Sivatai.
Okay, maybe. So it's something like that. That's a theory. I think this is good, so I'm going to do it. But what I was getting to, it isn't so much that as saying, I think these things, so this is what I'm going to do. It's more, I think these things, so what would it mean? Maybe I'm pulling.
I think I can give you an example.
Sure.
Like Freewald versus determinism. If you're a determinist, then you would have you might behave differently. There's some research to suggest that's the case. So that would be the implication, the practical implication of that question, versus having like an ethical belief that then you can put in practice yourself. Like self-chosen.
Yeah, so I think, Anthony, what you're trying to say is there's sort of two dimensions to like the practical, to that is practical implication, right? So like, there's
the implications, and then there's taking a theory and
just sort of
trying to apply
like what it would mean, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a good distinction to make. The short answer.
Are there no Kantians in the room?
Why?
Here.
Why you say that?
Well, I mean, authenticity comes through acting in ways that you would enjoin everyone else to act. If I was a vivisectionist, I wouldn't want anyone else to do it, but I would be able to justify my own pig dissection or whatever,
Yeah.
Did you see my point?
Well, you would want a community of pig dissectors to dissect pigs with.
The internet.
Yeah, not particularly.
I don't mean to interrupt. But
No. But I mean, yeah, like so.
This is the nature of public philosophy.
Should be.
Exactly. Doing it.
No, it's poor. I don't want to.
I do.
Quick question. Now I remember the second point that I wanted to make earlier. It's about public philosophy. Yeah, that was a substantive point. Anyway, I mean, I'm all for public philosophy, but I also have a question. I read, a blog on the New York Times, Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me that when philosophers try to communicate to the public, to a wider audience, they're incredibly boring.
Yeah.
And I wonder why, and if perhaps, doesn't this say something about, what we do and what we find interesting? I'm bored to death when I read those entries. Most of the people are. And the only people who respond to those, those tend to be, other philosophers.
Right.
Limited to say things.
Well, I mean, so.
You speak into the mic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So. I mean,
I don't think you can say just because some people put it in really boring language that we're inherently boring to most people, right? Do you think it's possible that some people could put this in interesting language that could sort of capture and motivate people?
What is that?
So, Reggie was talking about this New York Times blog, The Philosopher's Stone, where, it's supposed to be like a public column where professional philosophers talk about philosophy for just, everyday readers of the New York Times, and he said it's just incredibly boring. And just like the only people who end up reading it is other philosophers anyways. And I mean, maybe that's just because, they're just maybe not trying hard enough, I suppose. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's just possible that they just can't overcome the technical language. They've just been too saturated in it, maybe, but that sounds like too easy of an explanation. But I'm just hesitant to say this.
Who knows it's there, too, is part of the problem, right?
What do you mean?
like, I've never heard of it, and I'm, you know, I
Yeah.
try to keep on top of things, and
Right, yeah.
I haven't heard about it,
Yeah,
so.
I'm just hesitant to say that, like, you know, it's impossible to make it non-void, I suppose.
Well, it seems like the issue is more one of authority, because if physicists can now talk about meaning, you know, a physicist can talk about the meaning of the universe and the meaning of life,
Yeah.
and it can be accepted by mainstream media as something to talk about.
Right.
Then the problem is further back. It's who's being listened to. We're not being listened to. No, like there's a million different philosophical, metaphysical explanations for the meaning of this or that, but Stephen Hawking gets press because he's a theoretical physicist, right? And
Is it real philosophy or is it pop?
so.
What do you mean?
The question, I guess, is to why are we not legitimate in public eye?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I can answer that.
I'm not asking you. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah, so like, I mean, what you're suggesting is, it's not sort of up to us to just change this sort of thing, that like, you know, we wouldn't be taken seriously regardless. So, I mean, what you're suggesting that we just wouldn't be taken seriously regardless?
No, I'm saying, I'm just saying how to be taken seriously is the issue, and because, you know, everything is science is respectable, and
right.
How to get respectable is the question.
Well,
science makes money.
Yeah. But I mean, if I don't know,
Science makes money, so it draws.
if it was like, you know, sort of publicly known how a philosophical argument could change, you know, the public conception of a problem, or eliminate a problem altogether, you know, maybe people would start to see, oh.
I guess it's just because, like, science has apparatus or apparati or experiments that speak, right? They say this is the way things are.
Yeah.
And we don't have something that has that authority to speak to society.
Well, we'd never be so audacious as to say, this is how it is.
Yeah, right. And I think, like, I mean, part of it would be communicating, like, you know, listen, we're okay with not having a definitive answer with things, and I mean, people are uncomfortable with this, and they just take it to see, whoa, then everyone can just express their opinion, and we'll just get nowhere. But I mean,
they forget their trigger.
Yeah. So,
there's also a tentativeness is something that maybe promotes.
Right.
Tentativeness was more valued quality than maybe.
I don't know. I don't think we're stuck in a
not valued in that
It's a test of society, not a test of philosophy in itself.
Yeah, that's very good.
Why didn't you, in your talk, do what you said we should do, instead of giving a talk about why we should do it?
So,
why didn't you give a talk about the issue of the bridge, or the Occupy Windsor movement,
right,
or the war that you noticed recently?
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Instead of giving a talk about why we should give talks like that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you do it?
That's a really good question. And I had this thought, and I suppose I probably anticipated your question. To be honest, I probably should have. But in my own defense, I have to give this paper before that one. Just so, well, I mean, I hope I do that at some point in time. I mean, I have to, if I want to.
Well, and it's part of
I don't know if I want to talk about
part of what philosophy does is sort out what the values are and the relationship among values.
Yeah.
But the questions do remain, and part of making philosophy relevant is figuring out what those implications are, right? And how they pan out, and how to read contemporary circumstances in those contexts.
So, I mean, I had a couple examples that I was going to throw in of, you know, of exactly this, like, you know, okay, so here's a philosophical problem that, like, you know, would perhaps help people understand things, and one of them was, you know, you can sort of point out the fallacy in thinking that everything's determined. If you move from that to just thinking that everything's fate, and you have no control over the future, that's actually a fallacious move. But I thought I should really get into that. I don't really know why.
Maybe the philosopher needs to toil in these other things first for a couple decades before they start making statements about how things should be, or actually dealing with real
societal issues? I don't know.
I mean, I take the question to heart because I probably should have done that, or at least include this section.
Stephen had one more.
I don't think you should feel guilty about academic inquiry. This is legitimate as any other form of inquiry.
Yeah.
The problem of philosophy, as you described it, is the problem of all academic inquiry. This house at the university. All we are, like philosophers, are beings that remind people that things change. It's all we do. We throw acid on the grease of the everyday to say, no, it doesn't have to be like that. It wasn't always like that. And that's not natural. We've chosen through some process, no matter how flawed it is, to get to this point, to put our energy and our political purchase and the money into this area. It's not natural. All we're doing is saying, I mean, in humanities, we're saying things change. Aristotle, things are not what they are. They are otherwise. They can change. So let me just say that if all philosophers in Canada, North America, Western Europe, the world, right now, decided to practice what they preach, nothing would change. Not much would change. Until we realize that we are the custodians of change. It doesn't matter that you argue about metaphysics or you argue about this or ethics or whatever. You can have your engaging, I mean, there are many publics, right? I speak to 50 academics, but that's my public. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean I'm irrelevant, it just means I have a small audience, and that's okay. But to the world, we need to be custodians of change. Custodians of historicization. Saying it's just not like this, inevitably, as you put it. We're not determined. We are autonomous human beings, or the creatures that are not what they are. They can change. That's all. Because you know, whether you practice what you preach or not will make no fucking difference in the world, frankly. Maybe to your little audience, your friends, or whatever. But what we are as a department or an institution, I think we are custodians of historicization, of change. That's all we can do. Right? There might be a bigger role in future, but at the moment, the last 50 years, that's where we are.
I mean, I'm not sure I have much of a response.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that's really a great argument. But
No. I mean, I agree with you, but I suppose all I would say is that, I mean, you know, just practicing what you preach, I suppose, does not necessarily mean being static, right? I mean, if you're constantly critically thinking, it's about changing your position, you know, constantly. But in any case, I agree with you.
Okay, one last question. I see Bev.
Okay. Alex's comment here kind of got me thinking. I'm just wondering if maybe the norms within philosophy kind of close us off from the possibility of talking about applied concepts rather than theoretical concepts. I guess that's kind of what you're confronting here in a way. But I notice this a lot in writing my own papers, is I often want to go off into more applied tangents, but it's almost as if in philosophy there's kind of an obligation to remain more abstracted in the context.
Well, so I mean, when you act, when you make a decision, you sort of have to take things as true, right? It's just a sort of, you just have to do that. You're committing to something, right? But I mean, so part of philosophy is, you know, to as far as possible suspend your belief in as much as possible and not commit, right? And say, well, you know, let's wait, let's think about it a little bit more. But in order to be practical, you have to say, well, for 5 seconds I'm going to have to take this as true as it's going to be for me right now and do something. But I mean, that's just the nature of putting something into practice, I think. And I don't think philosophical reflection limits you from acting at all. I mean, you got to do something. I mean, if you believe in determinism, you're still going to pretend you're free, right?
Well, you chose determinism, didn't you?
Or maybe you were determined to accept it. I mean, Anyway. So yeah, thanks. Yeah,
All right. Hey.
You know, this is the kind of debate I love about this sort of thing. Just that whole. I mean, now I've got the microphone and I'm up here, so I get to do. Anyhow, that entire talk kind of reminded me of a moment of astonishment that I had right at the beginning of grad school. Right? I was sitting with about 6 other philosophy graduate students at a martini bar in St. Catharines, and one of my fellow graduate students noticed a girl who was fairly distraught, and he called her right over and said, "What's wrong? We're philosophers, we can help you." We are philosophers, we can help you. And why is there something extraordinary about the conceit that we as philosophers might be able to help you? Right? It struck me as extraordinary at the time. Right? Now, that as working as sort of an awkward lead-in to the presentation of this envelope of cash in my back pocket, we have tonight. Kayla, can I have you up here? All right. We've listened to a wonderful talk from Kel Bradley here, right, who is a third-year student at the University of Windsor. Plans to go on to a library science degree. And I have actually heard rumblings that he may be taking over as the director of the philosophy club as well.
Vicious lips.
These are rumors, all right? But it's my proud honor to actually hand you this envelope of cash, which is the Stan Cunningham Prize for Public Philosophy. And in lieu of an actual plaque, what I've done is dollars for a frame, a poster from tonight's event, that you can find a lovely place of honor in the downstairs lounge. All right. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All of you.
Cheers.
All right. Well, I don't know, I kind of want to go home and declare victory, but before I do that, we have a lovely solo set from George Mannery. As I was telling you earlier, George Mannery is a wonderful artist who, in my first years of philosophy, I used to hear perform at Buzz's Bar and Grill all the bloody time. Or at least I'm told I heard him perform at Buzz's Bar and Grill. It was sort of a pitcher joint, right? I'm getting indications that I should remind people that we have a raffle on as well. Alright, so what I'm going to do is have Jennifer at the back select one raffle prize. Alright? And anybody with a raffle ticket will become the new owner of this lovely Fog t-shirt. The raffle ticket is on the ground here. The last 3 numbers in the raffle ticket will be 7-11. 7-11.
Man, I'm just like on a roll tonight.
Hey! Public Philosophy and Fog t-shirt. That's wonderful. Shall we do one more? All right. There are a total of 5 of these prizes, so how about we pick something from Carrara this time? Let George perform, and then raffle off the other 3. So pick something from Carrara. All right. So what we have is a lovely and now vintage IL at 25 book bag with 3 years of conference proceeding CDs as well. So, and the winner of this lovely package is ticket number, last 3 numbers, 709. 709. 709. Right over there. Alrighty. Well, we still have a number of raffle prizes. I'm going to invite George up to the stage, and like I say, if he does like a quarter of what he did the last time I saw you perform, he is going to treat you very, very well.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm really sorry, but this is going to suck.
If he doesn't suck, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Anyhow, we'll give George a few minutes to get set up, and as Nietzsche says, without music, life would be a mistake. Cheers. Okay.
This is awesome.
I think so. It's been a really good day.
Yeah?
Anyhow, I need a cigarette. That's terrific.
About 5 minutes and we'll be ready to go.
Hey, 1, 2, check.
I've been to London, I've been to Hollywood. Still I don't know what is real. The other day, trying hard to find a clue, and I looked up and down and around, gone were all the paths I knew. If this song brings a smile and the pie tastes like sad. You know how I can't stand that thing. So I jot out some rhymes. I work all day. I get drunk, I get high. Yeah, I usually end up hanging with the night. Now let me see, did I lose you? Oh, baby, baby, did I abuse you? You gotta know. You gotta know that ain't me. Simple you are, face to the sun, so alive. Well, shit, I'm the same. Up and down and in and out, I'm moving on. If this song brings a smile, and the pot tastes just like sex, all up in your clothes and down your sleeves. Oh, baby, listen to the blues. You think about me time and again, and I've kept your heart close to mine, 'cause your shines on. Yes, it does. If this song, or when this song brings a smile, and your room is wet with sweat, right down your back, and in your sheets. Oh, mercy, mercy me. You think about me time and again. I've kept your heart close to mine. And if there's one single truth that I find, and through the bullshit, the beauty, the bad moves, and the brilliance, yeah, baby, your shines, yeah, yeah, baby, your shines, yeah, baby, your shines, all my nights, baby, your shines, yeah, baby, your shines, baby, your shines, baby, your shines, baby, your Thanks a lot. I wanted to stand up, but Grant said unless you're orating, you can't stand up. I'm like, shit, I'll sit down. Thank you very much. This is a pretty cool evening. I thank Grant and the association for allowing me to play a little music for you. And what is philosophy without Scotch whiskey? All I'm saying.
Scotch Enlightenment.
Oh, it says Scotch Enlightenment. Right then. This is a brand new song. Don't be blue. Take Thanks a lot. Just in case. No, this is serious. I mean, this is almost more serious than philosophy itself, what I'm about to say. There's only 407 shopping days until next Christmas. So, and apparently Chrysler is putting it on this year. I used to live in Windsor. I miss Windsor dearly every day. Hello, sweetie. I live in London now. Coming up, go London. And coming up Pulitzer, I saw the lions gray and blue dawning the streets, and I thought, it's going to be a Chrysler Christmas. And that's when I remembered there's 407 days before next Christmas, so you have that many shopping days. So there. Speaking of Windsor, this is a song about Windsor. It's called Sunny Moon. You make the highway by afternoon, walking backwards, there's a tune that goes do 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 do.